Well, we originally had like over a dozen different ideas, and then we were left with two. I chose the mental health app because I have a history with anxiety and depression, and I thought that it would be a really cool thing, even if we're just, designing an idea.
Mental illness is one of those things that's always kind of there, but people don't really like to talk about it or think about it. And so we really wanted to help remove some of that stigma and make it something more comfortable.
Miss Kinder called us, and she told us that she had some important news to tell us.
Getting invited to present something at the White House that you have been working hard on is always a welcome opportunity, I think.
And you're?
Crystal Kinder. I'm
Crystal.
the teacher and the advisor.
Very nice to meet you, Crystal.
The challenge, it's solving a need in the community, and healthcare is all about helping other people. And if we're going to help other people, let's just start here.
It was kind of surprising that how well technology and coding of the app went with these mental disorders that are kind of invisible diseases.
One of the things we discussed when we were brainstorming was what helps us personally, and that's what we put into the app. With our journaling feature, it's a much more safe way to get those problems out in that same typing it out medium that is much more comfortable for teens than walking into a counselor's office.
1 in 5 teens suffer from depression, and more than half of them don't seek for help.
You hear a lot about teens being depressed, especially with the rise in school shootings, bullying incidents. Our intention when we set out was to help, and then when that shooting came along, it kind of struck us how much it could help, especially when we saw the Seattle Times article about how the social media played in. It was like, wow, this is exactly what we're trying to address.
It's amazing to know that, if it's not you, it's somebody you know that is going through depression.
I hope that this app will give people those tools to cope with it, just like medication helps people with physical illness to get through their day.
Hello, scientists. These young scientists and engineers teach us that it's never too early to create or discover something new.
The coolest moment about the science fair was that I got to take a picture with Victor Cruz.
We got pictures with Bill Nye as well.
It's cool to be in a building that old and with that much history in it.
This has really been like a confidence booster, this whole experience. At first, I didn't think I could do this, any of this, and I've kind of proved myself wrong. Like, I can do this, I just did.
I didn't even know how an app was created. I think that the experience of coding has just taught me that if I push myself, I can do it.
So being in this class, I've realized that I want to go into healthcare IT. I really like this. I love coding. I've really enjoyed all of it.
I'm just really happy because that I guess I can leave something with the world that might make it a better place for teenagers.
It would be wonderful to get an email or something saying, hey, your app helped me.
So good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me back there. Kind of has a little bit of echo in the room. So if I get speaking too fast, it'll probably irritate you. So I'm going to try and go slow to the best I can. And welcome to the 2015 STEM Celebration Dinner. My name is Tom Yount. I'm with EnergySolutions, and I serve as president of the board of the Washington State STEM Education Foundation. And this room holds many of the region's top business, elected leaders, and you are the game changers in this community. We are most grateful for your presence, so thank you for coming out tonight. And before we go too much further, I know you just started eating, but I would like a few people to stand up when you're in these groups. So if we could have all the teachers or professors amongst us, please stand. Remain standing. All the teachers. So stay standing, please. Please. And also, if you're a school or college or university administrator, would you please also stand? If you're a school board member, would you stand? If you're on the foundation staff or foundation board, would you please stand? If you're an employer of a STEM professional, would you please stand? If you're a parent of a student, would you please stand? And then finally, if you're a STEM champion or a STEM supporter, would you stand? Thank you all for all you do for STEM education and helping the kids of our community. So wasn't that opening video inspiring right here in this community? Joining us tonight is the Tri-Tech Skills Center teacher featured in that video, Crystal Kinder. If you'd raise your hand, Crystal, where you're at out there. And also her two National Award-winning students, Amanda Arellano and Stephanie Lopez. If you guys would raise your hand and give them a round of applause. So why are we here tonight? And it's not for a free meal, because most of you had to pay for the dinner you're eating, and hopefully it's good, and hopefully I'll get to try some of it soon. And also, we're not here asking you for money tonight, and that may be unusual to go to an event in the Tri-Cities, something like this, and we're not asking for money to be given out, but that's not why we're here either. We're basically here to celebrate some of the local successes that have occurred through the year around STEM education and STEM initiatives, and also to expand our shared vision of what high-quality STEM education can do to support our economic development and our workforce readiness right here in the Mid-Columbia. Most importantly is to explore what each of us can do to assure that every young person is prepared and has an opportunity to explore high-demand, high-paying STEM careers and become a quality citizen in this community. STEM really does equal opportunity here in the Mid-Columbia and around the world. As most of you know, we have a decade-long history of innovation here in the Tri-Cities. This mindset has allowed a group of visionary leaders to explore the concept of STEM high school for the Tri-Cities. That vision has turned a concept 10 years ago into a stunning new building in West Pasco called Delta High. Delta High School continues to enhance the Mid-Columbia reputation as a pioneer in STEM education. Earlier this month, we celebrated the dedication and grand opening of the permanent home for Delta High. And Delta is a growing success, and I can attest to that because I've talked to the students, I've talked to the teachers, I've talked to the administrators, and they tell me it's a success. And I've also seen the test scores that have been tracked for the last 4 years, comparing science, math, reading scores against the state averages, and in every year, in every case, Delta High School is at least 10 and sometimes 30% higher than the state average, and that's just outstanding. And you can't talk about Delta High School, it wouldn't exist without hundreds of hands, hearts, and minds who came together to make an endeavor with a lasting legacy right here in the Mid-Columbia. So thank you to all you do for your commitment and ongoing support to those that have helped out. And we especially want to recognize Battelle and PNNL's leadership and their several $million investment in this project. Steve Ashby, we thank you and your organization, if you'd stand up, for all you've done and continue to do for Delta High School and STEM education. The foundation started in 2008, and it was formed with a vision of becoming a national model for generating passionate support for STEM education. And our calling was every student, every day. We did this because our local business leaders believe that STEM education prepares all students for life through learning with collaboration, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. Never before has providing a solid STEM education been more important. So what is the challenge we face? The Tri-Cities, as all of you know, is one of the top regions in the nation for STEM jobs. Our state's STEM economy ranks third in the nation for the concentration of STEM jobs. And STEM jobs in our state pay nearly double the standard STEM jobs or non-standard STEM jobs and have a median annual wage of $90,000 a year. Yet despite all that, too few students see the power of STEM and its possibilities. Now think about this, only 6 out of 100 high school freshmen in Washington will eventually graduate with a STEM degree. That's 6%. And of those who do pursue higher education, 7,000 are leaving this state to go to school elsewhere. 7,000 kids are leaving this state every year to go to school elsewhere. We're exporting our kids, and many of them don't come back and seek employment here. So tonight you're going to hear from the next several speakers what we're doing about this challenge, and collectively what we're doing to work on filling this gap. And so now it's time to introduce the next speaker, and I'm proud and honored to introduce a community leader who is no stranger to this group. She's a passionate supporter of STEM education, and as a freshman senator, she provided key leadership that helped secure funding for Delta High School. And when I say key leadership, I mean she was the one that pushed through to make sure we got the final gap funding to make Delta High School reality. That wouldn't have happened without Sharon Brown. This past year, she hosted the first ever remote Senate testimony for CBC, inviting the Foundation and Delta High, among others, to report on one of her favorite topics, STEM education. Representing the 8th Legislative District, I'm proud to introduce Senator Sharon Brown.
Thank you, Tom. It is great to be here tonight, especially to celebrate an issue that I am absolutely passionate about, STEM education. I have a very personal story regarding why I'm so thrilled about the emphasis that is currently being placed on STEM education. I'm going to take you back about 20 years. I'm not going to tell you exactly how many of those 20 years, but about 20 years. I'm sitting in my law school class, I look around and I'm surrounded by men. No, it wasn't a dream, it was real. Most of my professors were men, my colleagues were for the most part, you guessed it, men. Why was the law school that I attended predominantly white male? Because the school was known for its intellectual property emphasis. And well, that required an understanding of and/or desire to pursue a law school degree focused on science, technology, engineering, and math as it related to law, hence intellectual property. Back then, STEM was reserved for white men. Fast forward many years, and I find myself taking a tour of Delta High School in its old location. I'm escorted from class to class by teachers who are women, students who are African American, Hispanic, some who are A+, some who are C, and I am completely mesmerized. Everyone was engaged. There are clearly students who would have fallen through the cracks in a traditional institution, yet here at Delta, they are thriving. They are looking forward to very bright futures. Students are engaged, teachers are engaged, and I'm thinking, where the heck were you 20+ years ago? It would have been a lot more comfortable having more women in that law school class. This vibrant STEM environment is exactly what we need to be developing. We have approximately 20,000 unfilled STEM-related jobs in this state alone, and you know what the Tri-Cities is going to do about it? We are growing our own. Like so many things we do here in the Tri-Cities, we are novel. We solve our own problems. We are celebrating tonight the opening of a 3rd STEM elementary school in the Tri-Cities. Our students in the Tri-Cities can go from STEM elementary to Delta High School, CBC, WSU Tri-Cities, and out to fill some of those 20,000 high-paying jobs, solve some of the world's problems. Yes, that's what we're doing right here in the Tri-Cities. We're growing our own. Investments in STEM education aren't just about improving educational outcomes for our young people. They directly impact our economic development. We can see this firsthand through the success of Live Tiles. The New York-based software company recently located a portion of its operations to Richland. At the invitation of Port of Benton officials, a former Live Tiles executive from Australia visited our region. The Mid-Columbia was one of a number of areas that Phil Randall was considering for relocation of the company's R&D team. With the help of port officials, Phil spoke with leaders at WSU Tri-Cities, CBC, the Foundation, and many others. Phil made a special point to tour Delta High, and like myself, he was duly impressed. In reporting to the Foundation Board, Phil explained that the decision to relocate to the Tri-Cities was in part because the region offered an outstanding education system with a strong emphasis on STEM education. Next, I'd like to introduce to you two outstanding young professionals who recently relocated to our community. Captain Greg Smith and former Captain Bree Smith, would you please stand? Now I get to embarrass you guys. Bree and Greg each spent 8 years on active duty with the Air Force. After graduating from the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Captain Greg Smith continues to serve in the Air National Guard. Both were recruited as engineers by Washington River Protection Solutions, where they began working this summer, and both have already demonstrated a clear investment in their newly adopted community as volunteers for the Foundation. Key factors in the Smiths' decision to make the Tri-Cities their home included our forward-looking STEM education focus and a STEM high school right here in the Tri-Cities. Greg and Bree, thank you very much for your service to this country, and thank you for choosing the Tri-Cities. And now, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to present to you the 2013 National Teacher of the Year. After being bestowed with this great honor, this talented STEM educator spent a year touring the country, speaking and sharing his passion for STEM education. Following this year-long commitment and his new title, there were numerous more lucrative opportunities to leave the classroom. Yet, his heart remains with his students, and he elected to return to Zillah, Washington. How about that, to have outstanding offers from all over the country and come back home? He wanted to continue to teach and demonstrated his unwavering commitment to changing young lives each day. It is my honor to introduce to you Mr. Jeff Charbonneau.
So I teach chemistry, physics, engineering, and robotics. Apparently, I don't teach personal finance. You know, there were a lot of offers, I'll admit to that, to go teach elsewhere, to go do other job opportunities, and I came back to Zillah High School, the school that I graduated high school from and now teach at, which is either a really cool story or a really sad story, depending on your perspective. People ask me over the last 3 years, you know, so what makes you different? Why you? In other words, it's really a veiled attempt to be like the entire United States of America, and this is your National Teacher of the Year? Really, this guy, right? So a lot of people ask me that question, and I think it boils down to this. As a teacher, you get the opportunity to make about 1 billion decisions a day. You get to decide whether or not you're going to let that student turn in their homework late or not because their dog ate it, right? You get to decide whether or not a student should have to move from one seat to another because they're too busy talking to the person sitting next to you. There's literally 1 billion decisions you have to make. There's decisions to be made about curriculum. There's decisions to be made about assessments. There's decisions to be made about extracurricular activities. After all, last year I was in charge of prom. You know, prom's going to be awesome when it's the physics teacher that's in charge of it, right? It's great. So people ask me all the time, so what is it about the way that you teach that makes your students want to get into these classes. After all, every single course that I teach counts for college credit. If you're taking chemistry from me, you're actually taking Chemistry 151 from Eastern Washington University. If you take physics from me, you're taking Physics 111 and 112 from Central Washington University. I teach juniors and seniors in high school about quantum mechanics. Who in here would sign up for that class, right? And that's about the entire region, yeah. And yet my classes are consistently full. Why? It's simple. I don't focus on quantum mechanics in the beginning. I focus on the kid. I focus on building a relationship with my students. I need to know and understand my students' perspective. I need to know where they're coming from. I need to know whether or not they're interested in BMX racing or whether or not they're interested in the Xbox One. And so it was under a veil of research, and because I really need to know my students, that I bought an Xbox One. When I play those video games, it's called research, people, research. But I'm serious. I actually am serious. I listen to hip-hop even though I don't really enjoy it because I need to know who my students are listening to. I need to know that the world that they're in, and I need them to know that I value that world. As soon as I understand who my students are, then I'm able to teach them. You see, here's the trick. When you develop positive relationships with a student, they'll do anything for you. They'll even learn quantum mechanics, believe it or not. And so I come here tonight with a specific ask. If it's the relationships that are most important in education, if it's the relationship between the teacher and the student that's going to get the most bang for the buck, that's going to get the most impact on that student's life, then I need you. It's as simple as that. I need you to show these students the relationships that they can have with science. I need you to show them the relationship that they can have with engineering, with computer science, with technology, with manufacturing. You see, I can't do it by myself because I'm not in your world. Imagine if we could have engineers come into the classroom for 30 minutes and tell a student about what it is that you do. Imagine if we could have nuclear physicists come in, or even Skype into the classroom for just 10 minutes at a time. Because you know what's really, really amazing as a teacher? Is I can tell them the same thing 10 days in a row, and if you say it for a minute, they listen to you. That's what I need. I need the STEM professionals in our region to volunteer, to come in and help me as a teacher to share the message of what STEM education is like, to show students what they could be in the future. You know, see, here's the problem. I teach chemistry, physics, engineering, and math, and so everybody says, oh, you're just worried about creating the next generations of doctors. You're just worried about creating the next generation of scientists. And I say, you know what? No. I actually don't care if my students go into the sciences or not. Because it's not my job to produce the next generation of scientists. It's my job to help create the next generation. Period. But the generation that we live in right now means that you need to understand technology and science and engineering and math. You have to. Imagine how good our marketers would be if they actually had a background in science. Imagine how good our future politicians, our future leaders of America would be if they had those backgrounds. Imagine how good our entire society would be if everyone had a solid background in STEM education. You know, so the ask is really simple. The ask is as straightforward as come into the classroom with me and develop a relationship with those students. And it can be short, it can be 20, 30 minutes. The impact that you will have will be tremendous. Imagine back in your own life, the most impactful times that you had in school. For me, one of the most impactful times was when we actually got to go on a tour to one of our waterworks facilities known as a dam. We went on one of the most amazing waterwork facility dam tours I've ever been on. It was incredibly impactful for me because as a fourth grader, I was able to come up with about 1 billion different jokes about that individual tour. And yet, what I remember the most from it is the people. The people that I talked with, the engineers, the people who were down working actually in the facility, and how impactful that was. So we're here tonight. You've already made some level of commitment. You've already said at some level that STEM education is important to you. So this really is not a hard sell, because you've shown a little bit that you're interested in STEM. My question to you is, how interested are you? I do a lot of things in my school. I'm the yearbook advisor, I'm the science club advisor, the robotics instructor, the rocketry advisor. I was also the assistant drama director for 12 years, because, you know, science and drama, okay, hand in hand. And everybody always asked me, how do you have the time to do that? How do you have the time to do all of these things? How do you have the time to do this or that? And people say, I just don't have the time for it. And I say, you know what? You're wrong. There is no such thing as not having enough time to do something. There's no such thing. We all have the same amount of time. The question is whether or not what you value and what you prioritize, whether or not that's high enough on your list. So I say this to you. Is STEM education high enough on your list? Is the future of our society high enough on your list to help us in the classroom by coming in and volunteering your time and your expertise? I sincerely hope that many of you will find that somewhere on your priority list high enough to spend a day or even two in a classroom sometime in the very near future. Thank you so very much for the impact that you have made in this area. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. God bless you. And there's one.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Arthur Baranovskiy, and I'm a freshman at WSU Tri-Cities studying electrical engineering. I never would have imagined the role STEM education. Oh, thank you. I never would have imagined the role STEM education would play in my life until just a few years ago. Originally, my family moved from Moldova, which is a small republic and a part of the former USSR. My parents moved to Richland looking for a brighter future for their 5 children, and my sisters and I grew up in Richland, going to Jason Lee and Chief Joseph Middle School. Then came the time to enroll me into a high school, and my parents chose Delta for me. As the average teenager, I wanted to go to my home high school, Kamaikan, and we all know every 14-year-old knows what's best for him, right? Naturally, my first year at Delta was a little bit rough, but over time, with the constant support of the teachers, with a customized curriculum, I fell in love with the school, and I graduated from Delta this past June 2015. Thank you. One of my more challenging classes at Delta was technology and engineering. In this class, one of the most memorable projects was to design, build, draw, program, and then test a sumo robot that will then compete against other robots at a regional competition. And this was definitely one of the more challenging projects in high school, and many of us as freshmen had to stay after school just to complete the task to pass the class. However, most importantly, we were never alone. There were always teachers and professors and volunteers and engineers, and sometimes just parents that stayed after, and they helped us, they guided us, whether it was teaching us how to solder or finding that extra semicolon in the 60th line of our code. They were always there to help us. And that's what I remember most about Delta. That's what impacted me. That was a pivotal point in my education at Delta. I went from a freshman building robots to a senior as an intern at an outstanding local engineering company, Meyer Architecture and Engineering. At Meyer, I got to interact on a daily level with professional engineers, and I was exposed to many different disciplines of engineering. As a direct result of that, when I was enrolling into classes at WSU this last fall, I knew for sure what I wanted to study: electrical engineering. What was special about Meyer is that the engineers treated me as one of their own. I was invited to meetings, to discussions, to conferences, and naturally, as a high school student, I couldn't contribute as much as I wanted to. But I still attended, and I sat back, and I took notes and observed, but most importantly, I learned. My experience at Meyer was almost a separate school. I would spend the morning at Delta studying English and chemistry and history, and then I'd spend the afternoon optimizing cable tray diagrams or calculating voltage drop-off. And another thing that was a very rewarding experience was being able to apply the knowledge that I've been taught in high school and middle school to solve a real-world problem. Do we have any math teachers in here? Well, any math teacher will tell you that the most common question they're asked is, why are we learning this? Why do we need to know the Pythagorean theorem or the quadratic formula? And I myself am guilty of asking these questions, and even now on a weekly basis. At Meyer, these questions were answered because I got to apply the math skills that I've learned throughout high school and middle school to solve a real-world problem, and this was a very rewarding experience. At Delta, I also had the opportunity to become involved with student leadership and community service organizations like Key Club and the Student Ambassadors Program. As an ambassador, our main role was to provide tours to guests around our campus and to present and represent the interests of STEM and Delta around the community. I've actually had the privilege of touring many of you that are here around our campus, so it's great to see familiar faces again. Even though I graduated in June, if you're once an ambassador, you're always an ambassador. And this summer, I got to participate in a program called STEM Like Me. In this program, adults in the STEM field get to interact with non-traditional children on a personal level. And this, in the hopes of igniting a passion in engineering or science or technology in the hopes that they will pursue a STEM-related career. Personally, this was a very personally rewarding experience because I had the chance to influence someone's life just like my life was influenced 4 years ago. Even though right now, as we invest our time and our finances, maybe we don't see the benefit right away of our efforts. But we are investing directly into the future, and not just the future of these children or the future of our families, of the community. We are changing the world. For example, even though only a small team of engineers and technicians worked with Martin Cooper to release the first cell phone in 1973, that invention completely revolutionized the entire concept of communication. And now with this piece of plastic and metal and glass, the entire world is at our fingertips. It's amazing. It is, however, the future students, the future engineers, technicians, inventors, today they're just students and they're just children, and it's our responsibility as a generation, as a group, to cultivate a positive environment, to encourage these students, to push them, to water these seeds so they can grow to reach their full potential. And that's exactly what we're doing with schools like Delta High, Rosalind Franklin, Mary Curie. Ladies and gentlemen, you are changing the world one student at a time. Congratulations. I remember reading a story once about a man that's walking on a beach, and in the distance he sees a little boy picking things up from the beach and throwing them in the water. As he approaches, he sees that the boy is picking up starfish, and after a while he asks the boy, "What are you doing?" The boy answers, "Well, these are starfish, and after being exposed to sunlight and not being in water for the oxygen, they will die, so I'm throwing them back in." At this, the man laughs and he says, "There's thousands of starfish on this beach and hundreds of beaches just like this one, and you're just one little boy with 2 hands. What difference does it make?" The boy picked up another starfish, threw it in the ocean, and smiled and said, "It made a huge difference to that one." Every hour and every minute and every penny that you guys invest in us, it matters. If each of us could change and influence just one student's life, it would make a difference. And this is coming from the perspective of a past and present STEM student, from a non-traditional family where English was not my first language, from a student that had trouble adapting to high school. Your efforts matter, so thank you. To all the teachers, all the staff, everyone that contributed to Delta, for not letting us give up when we wanted to, for Meyer Architecture for giving me that wonderful internship opportunity, I would like to say thank you. To my extraordinary parents who are here as well, I would like to thank them for not giving up on me when many people would have reason to. And to everyone else in this room and in this community that are always so generous with your time and your finances for STEM education, I promise to continue my service in this community in the hopes of influencing a child's life like mine was changed 4 years ago. Thank you.
Our Asher, that was fabulous. Thank you so much. We are all so proud of you. And Jeff, what amazing talk that was. We just can't thank you enough for taking the time. He taught all day. He got in his car. He drove down here from Zillah to give what was probably speech number 1,157 on the same topic. But he graciously agreed to do that. And certainly Senator Brown, you've been so influential. We just really can't thank you enough. So my name is Deb Bowen, and I'm the director of the foundation. And with me tonight, I have a very special guest. Her name is Jasmine Benavides, and she is an 8th grade student at Stevens Middle School, where I went to junior high many years ago, when it was a junior high and not a middle school. And what we know is that research tells us that if Jasmine leaves 8th grade without developing some kind of expectation that she might pursue a STEM career, that the chances that she will persist through the tough classes and actually complete a STEM degree are very minimal. So the good news is that Jasmine's growing up in the Tri-Cities, where we are passionate about STEM education. Kimberly Harper, can you give us a wave out there? Stand up, Kimberly, you're a little short. Just let everybody see you, okay. Thank you, Kimberly. Kimberly is a scientist with the U.S. Department of Energy, and she decided a couple years ago that she was going to create a new program called eMERGE. And eMERGE is designed to help middle school students put together 3 very important elements: STEM, leadership, and service. And Kimberly went out and she recruited a bunch of talented adults to help mentor these young middle school girls. And they've had this extraordinary experience, and one of her students is Jasmine, and that's how I had a chance to meet Jasmine. But it wasn't enough that Kimberly put together this group. She wanted these budding STEM professionals to have a chance to go to WSU to their summer science camp. And so she just got together with a group of friends, and they raised scholarship money, and they were able to send their best and brightest out to WSU last summer to science camp. And that included Jasmine. What's more, the U.S. Department of Energy put together a special program called the STEM Cafe at our beautiful Reach Museum. And they partnered with the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, Office of STEM, Jeff Estes, right there, one of the original STEM pioneers. They put together this great program at the Reach where young people came and got to learn about STEM careers. And Kimberly picked up the phone, called the officials at Stevens and said, could you please bring some of these great eMERGE girls to this program? And that included Jasmine. What's more, Jasmine had the opportunity last year to also participate in the MESA program, and I hope you had a chance to see their table out there. In that program, she had the opportunity to learn that she is a robotic arm challenge rock star. And I was chatting with her the other night, and I said, so what's your favorite class? And without hesitation, she said, oh, it was 7th grade science. I loved 7th grade science. Mr. Mendez was great. Mr. Mendez, are you out there? You know, it came as no surprise that she would name Mr. Mendez, because last year the foundation had a contest. It was a computer coding contest, and the grand prize winner in that was Mr. Mendez. So we had the privilege of talking to him and finding out that he is extraordinarily passionate about his career, just like Jeff, just like the wonderful teachers at Delta, and he wants every student in his class to have a full opportunity to experience science, and especially to excel at this science fair at Stevens, where Jasmine had an awesome project. So many wonderful opportunities for Jasmine to try to develop that sense that STEM might be in her future. Unfortunately, what we know is that there are thousands of young people in this community that still don't have these opportunities, the wonderful opportunities that Arthur had to go to Meyer Engineering, or to have all those STEM professionals come into Delta, or all the wonderful things that Jasmine's been able to do over the last year. So the question really becomes, how do we all come together and garner our resources and really come to really deliver on the Foundation's original goal, which was to make the Tri-Cities a national model for passionate support for STEM education, every student, every day. So we've had some good fortune this past year in that we were approached by Washington STEM, which is a nonprofit in the Seattle area that has an objective of creating a series of STEM networks across the state. And so we wrote a grant and we received $200,000 to help build our network. And not only that, but it's been an opportunity for us to share what we've learned here with folks across the state, and also to learn from them. In fact, we hosted the state STEM meetings here in August. We've also brought in other resources, including new partnerships. So the Women's Funding Alliance is now here because of this new partnership. Code.org has had some resources brought to our region, and we're just very excited to be building this new partnership. There's more information about it that you'll find in your community report on the table that we hope you'll take with you. So the other piece is, what can we do here locally? On your table, you will find a, thanks Abby, a half sheet. And this invites you to do two things: to consider being more of an informed advocate, just learning more about STEM education, because that's certainly step one. And then the other piece is to invite you to become directly involved. So we have coming up, what we'd ask you to do is, if you're interested in any of those things, to complete the form, check the boxes you're interested in, and leave it on the table, and we'll be following up with you. Absolutely no obligation, but we'll present you with some information. We want to point out that in November 18th, we have a Women in STEM Town Hall coming up, and that's going to feature some top STEM professionals from our community, including Peggy McCullough from Bechtel. So we're very excited to have that. Give her a hand. And we also want to make special note of the fact that we've got some tours coming up after the first of the year. We've got some state tours of STEM education, and we've also got some local tours. If you're interested in that, please check that box. And we really want to stress the volunteer piece. You've heard tonight, it is so important. We believe that this community, this amazing community, can probably double, triple, in the coming years, quadruple the number of caring adults who are in these classes helping young people like Jasmine and Arthur to really connect and see the power and possibility of STEM. And you know, I see your faces. You are the people that lead thousands of STEM employees. I'm looking at you. I'm seeing you. If you can please help to inspire your employees to think about just adding an extra hour of volunteering, it would make such a huge difference. And you know, it's great for your employees. It's a great opportunity for them to polish their leadership and presentation skills, to think back about why they took on their career, and even to get out in the community and tell your company's story. So it's a great opportunity, a great win-win all around. Also want to mention the internships that meant so much to Arthur and made such a difference in his life. We need many, many more internships. And yes, not all students are quite as perfect as Arthur. If you think back to what you were like when you were 18, 19, 20 years old, but every one of them could have so much benefit if we could increase the number of internships that we're offering here in the Tri-Cities. And I want to make a special note about Delta. You've heard tonight that Delta High School, it's not just about the 400 fortunate students that make the lottery and make it to that school. It's put us on the map. It's made us a destination, a place for people like the Smiths to come because we have some great opportunities for their future children. and it's also bringing in companies like Live Tiles. So if we're going to have this STEM high school in our community and continue to have it be successful, we have a real commitment to create that strong support, because community involvement is a cornerstone of a great STEM high school. So could I ask Heather Hoppy, could you please stand? Heather coordinates all of the volunteer opportunities. Please see Heather if you'd like to volunteer in Delta, or contact her over at the school. And Julie Weisgerber, would you please stand? Julie handles all of the internships. We would ask you to please make Julie's day and find a spot for another Delta intern. That would be tremendous. There's one last box. Oops, we're to Jasmine. There's one last box on this card, and it's community coordinator. If you or your designee is interested in representing your company or your service group or your professional society in becoming a community coordinator, this is an opportunity for you, A, to become an informed advocate, but B, to also help us then reach into those groups and recruit more volunteers. And Robin Watanek, if you would please stand. Robin is brand new with our foundation, and she is going to lead the community coordinator effort. So. Finally, there are two women here tonight that have dedicated their careers to youth development. They have worked tirelessly. They are the ones that put on these flawless events. They've done it for years, and they've never been publicly thanked. And so I would just like to take a minute to ask Connie Hatchie, who's probably Connie, and Kathy Bull. They probably won't even stand. We really have so much to celebrate here and so much work to do. Before Jasmine says a few closing remarks, this is the good part. Poor Tom Yount, he has worked so hard since 2008. He has done whatever it's taken to help Delta get rolling, to help the foundation. He has worked so hard. All Tom wanted to do tonight was tell you a STEM joke. And he tried at his home last night to get his wife and his daughter, who's in the back of the room, to laugh at his STEM jokes. They didn't get them. They said, don't do them. And so Tom, come up and try this group. Come on. Come on. I'll let him borrow this. Okay. Even if you don't think it's funny, please laugh. Okay.
So why can't you trust an atom? Why can't you trust an atom? Because they make up everything.
Okay. And now a few words from Jasmine.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take this opportunity to thank our generous media partners, the Tri-City Herald, Radio Capizana, Science Salsa, Winsome Design, and Charter Communications. We will also like to thank the sponsors of tonight's dinner: Washington River Protection Solutions, CH2M Hill Plateau Remediations Company, Battelle, Northwest CPA, Lockheed Martin, EnergySolutions, Innovec, Columbia Basin College, and the Country Gentleman Restaurant. Wasn't this dinner great? Most of all, on behalf of the students in our community, I thank you for all you are doing to build us a better future and achieve our full potential. Good night.